Hello, this is Daniel Mart, and today I'm going to be doing the first edition for After the Credits. So yeah, sometimes in my every Friday or not Fridays, every weekend, sorry. Sometimes I put between Friday and Saturday, I do a video discussing a theory, whether it be so yeah, I started off with movie theories, then I kind of spanned out with a music theory, which is does was Kurt Cobain murdered, and so you have that. And afterwards, I've done different types of theories for different, I guess, genres. I guess is the best way to put it. Yeah, I think genres would be the best way to put it. So yeah, I've gone from movies to music to TV, religious, political, science, business, theories as well. Book theories. I'm gonna be doing that pretty soon, or start maybe soon. I don't know when exactly though, which that one basically encompass comic books and novels and short stories and whatever. Science theories again. So I more or less have spanned out to do different types of theories. Video game theories. I've done video game theories as well. So this one's gonna be a variation. It's gonna basically this one's called After the Credits. It's a variation. Sometimes I'll do those, or sometimes I'll do another theory video. In general, though, this is still a theory video. So basically, this is gonna be my predictions for what happens after the credits end. So what could happen after the movie ended. Uh, no, so yeah, now normally I won't do this for movies that have sequels, right? Official sequels. So yeah, so this first one will be for Cinderella. So I wanted to do this one, but I was first thinking that I should watch the 2015 version of it first. I should watch the original animated version of it and then the 2015 version to see how different it is. So yeah, and I watched the 2015 version on Monday, hence why this theory video is late. So yeah, and also before I begin, some of my theory videos, they always have like they always say movie theory or whatever, or religious slash political theory or something like that. This one will just be called after the credits. So yeah, this will have its own playlist. But this one will also go because this one applies to TV shows and movies. So in this case, Cinderella, this one will be also under the the movie theory playlist. Okay, but this one will also be the first one, and after the credits playlist. So yeah, basically, what happens after the credits roll? In Cinderella. So Cinderella, she is married to Prince Charming. I guess that would be the guy's name. I heard that originally his name was gonna be like Henry or something like that. Henry, or something like that. I don't know. In the 2015 movie, they actually gave him a name, which is Kit. So I guess we'll call him Kit for now, or Prince Charming or whatever. So yeah, so basically, Cinderella would like because of Cinderella, it's not based on the Father Grimm or the Grimm novels or whatever. It's based on some other version of it, a fairy tale, a very known fairy tale. The Grimm novels just take that fairy tale, make it darker. So yeah, basically the original story takes place in Germany, which is very important, around the 15 to 1600s. I want somewhere around there. Which again, the time date, or at least the approximate time date, is again very important, especially when it comes to the 2015 version. I am going to be taking elements from both versions, because I have seen both movies as of now. So yeah. Now Cinderella, she is a peasant girl, as we all know. She started off as an aristocrat, while being somewhat wealthy. Her parents then died, and she becomes a peasant girl. Due to the fact that her stepmother, Lady Tremaine, takes all of her money, takes everything she has. She then marries off to Prince Charming or whatever, or Kit in the 2015 version, and now she becomes royalty. Okay, again, this all makes sense. So yeah, basically what was happening around the 16 to 1500, 15 to 1600s. Sorry. Well, basically at that time, first off, you had America, which they kind of touch upon in the 15 version, the 2015. America apparently is beginning, I guess you could say it's a beginning, because again, America was found in 1492. Okay, right around the turn of the century for the 1500s. So, so yeah, so basically, and we see that in the 2015 version. She asked her daughter for she asked her father for a tree branch, the first tree branch she sees in America, and they reference America at the beginning a lot. Again, that's just a tidbit right there. So yeah, basically what happened. Now, the reason the king in both movies, he says you should marry for power, you should marry royalty, and that back then was the belief. You should marry for royalty. At the very least, I mean, because he had different social classes. You had the poor people, which were the peasants, which was Cinderella. Now I don't. It was always some. Now in every country, by the way, it was something different, but the general rule, for every single European nation, they always had a bit different. They always had their own variation. Sometimes there was like subgenres for a social class, but overall they had something kind of like this: this peasantry and the poor right here at the bottom. Afterwards, you would have the middle class. Then you have the baroques and the bourgeoisies or burgesses or whatever you want to call, which is basically what the rich people were. And then you had royalty. Now, something depending which ones you which country you had, you may have subgenres of each one. Now, Germany, I don't recall to have one. It possibly did, but I don't exactly recall. So yeah, now wars in the 1500s. That's basically the most important thing. Wars between the 15 and 1600s, and what were some of the most major wars, because that's basically what happens. Basically, in a time during the 15 and 1600s, there's plenty of wars. There's always wars for either independence or whatever. Now, Germany during this time, they were struggling with unification. Germany was kind of like, think of it as the United States. There is one whole country called Germany, but within it, there's like smaller states, smaller sections that have their own government, similar to the United States. You know how we have the United States, but then you have Texas, you have Ohio, you have Idaho, Wisconsin, Wyoming, Florida, California, New York, Rhode Island, Alaska, Hawaii, um, Maine, Maryland, Virginia. You know how you have all these West Virginia, you have all these smaller states in it. Now it was pretty similar back then. Now if you ask me now if you want me to name any of those states, yeah, good luck. So what were some of the major wars back then? Now we don't have a specific time date as to when it was. That's why we say around the 15 to 1600s. But some of the major wars back then was the War of the League of Cambrai or Cambrai, the Ottoman Civil War, the Ottoman Civil War. Sorry. Those are some of the major ones. The Italian War of 1521 to 1526, the Swedish War of Liberation, the War of the League of Cognac, the Battle of Moncas or Mohawks. Again, I'm actually using my notes, my European history notes, to be honest. So yeah, the Hungarian campaign, the Ethiopian Adda War, the First War of Capel, the Balkan campaign of 1529, the Siege of Vienna, the Inca Civil War, which actually does come into play through Spain, okay, and Germany and Spain, which I'll get to later. Um, the Little War in Hungary, the Second War of Capel, the Ottoman Safavid War. I hope I pronounced that right. The Spanish conquest of the Inca Empire, which again I'll get to that later. The Togo Hathaway, I believe is how you pronounce it, war, which is from 1534 to 41. The Togo Ava War, the Italian War of 1942 to 46. The Schmalkaldic War, I believe is how you say it. The Italian War of 1551 to 1559. Yeah, they had a lot of wars. The Kazan Rebellion of 1552 to 1556, the Siege of Kazan, the Livian War, and the reason I actually need to name every single war, it's not like I could throw them aside. Reason important to every single war, depending when it takes place. The French War of Religion, the Northern Seven-Year War, which took place in Sweden, the Philippine revolts against Spain, the 8 Year War, the 80 Year War. Sorry, the 80 Year War. So there's that. The Second Desmond Rebellion, the War of the Portuguese Succession, the Russo-Swedish War, the Long War, which is again it takes a long time. It's from 1991 to 1606. It's a little bit over couple years. In that one, you have Austria, the Holy Roman Empire, the Habsburgs in Hungary, the Croatia, the Kingdom of it, the Kingdom of Bohemia, the Principality of Transylvania, which is basically Transylvania, Wallachia, Moldavia, Zaporizhia host, Spain, Serbian, Hajdusk, the Papal States, Venice, Saxony, Tuscany, Persia, the Knights of Saint Stephen, Bulgarian rebels, the Duchy of Ferrara and Mantua, the Republic of Rogues, and Duchy of Savoy. Again, pretty important. Um, Japanese invasion of Korea, and the 9 Year War in Ireland. And that's only in the 1500s. Then in the 1600s, you have the Dutch-Portuguese War, the War of Julic Succession, or Julic Succession. I don't know really how to say that. The Uksuk War, the Spanish conquest of Patan, the 30 Year War, the reign of Genoa, the War of Maintain Succession, the Pequot War, the Franco-Spanish War, um, the Portuguese Resolution War, the Irish Confederation War, the Cretan War, Swiss Peasant War of 1653, the Second Northern War, the War of Devolution, the Polish-Ottoman War, the Franco-Dutch War, the Scanian War, the King Philip's War, Great Turkish War, the Mauryan War, the War of Reunion, the Russo-Turkish War, the 9 Year War, and yeah, and this War of Spanish Succession it started in the 1700s, but it kind of has roots back from the 1600s. So again, why are all these wars important? Why Spain, France, are these nations important? Why is power so important during this time? And here's why. Basically, at the time, it was common to marry off to rich people, preferably the royalty, which is why in the 2015 version, they wanted him to marry this princess from India. It doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. So yeah, and at the time, there's a lot of incest. Actually, there's actually a ton of incest. Not so yeah, we have daughters marrying off. You have girls marrying off to their own uncles. You have cousins marrying each other. So yeah, now they weren't gonna show that in the Cinderella movie, so hence why they got some Indian princess they want him to marry off. Okay, now power at the time was important because that's how you make allies. You didn't keep allies back then. You normally you'd have an ally during the wars, and that's it. And yeah, and usually your partner, normally it's a king. Sometimes there are queens, but normally again it's a king. Um, Normally the king, his partner also um does influence everything because here's the thing, you're marrying off to royalty. Normally you would marry off to royalty, so it's all about power. It's all about how much land you rule back then. The bigger the better. So let's say this takes place in Germany, which most likely that's what most people say it does. So let's say if Kent were to have married the girl in India, once the now that he's married to the girl in India, and let's say she has no brothers, because she had brothers, then be a whole different issue. But let's say she has no brothers. Once her father dies, um, he would inherit all of India. So now Germany would be taking over India. Now that never happened. I don't think that ever happened in real life. So yeah, and again, the more land you rule, the better, because that's what most people wanted. You have Germany, who normally would marry off to people in Austria. And that's how they normally have their alliance. Austria and Germany are the only countries who had like a long-standing alliance. France and British had a long-standing alliance, but that's a whole now alliances during this time. Why does that matter? Now during wars, you have alliances, and normally it'd be like this. Okay, we're gonna be alliances for this. It's gonna benefit each other. But now in the next war, I'm gonna be in an ally with him and possibly fight against you. Alliances back then weren't really kept all that well. So yeah, but something that does affect an alliance is who your partner is. Normally, if you marry a peasant girl, it doesn't matter how beautiful she is. And honestly, in my opinion, Cinderella, she's never been the most good-looking princess. I'm gonna be straight up. She's never really been the most good-looking princess, in my opinion. That's a personal thought. But your wife also does affect it. So yeah, now again, the wars all depend. Germany was, and for the most part, in most of these wars either it was affecting it somehow, or it's helping it, or somehow even after that, Germany, for the most part, Germany, France, Italy, and the British were always in these wars, so some way, somehow, whether they be fighting in it, actually battling in it, or being a supplier, just giving supplies to one of the nations that was in it. So yeah, basically it's because of that. That's why Cinderella, behind the scenes, after a while, the king, in this case Kent, it doesn't matter how beautiful she is in his eyes or whatever, no matter how strong true love, whatever, he's gonna get tired of her. Probably want to execute her because at that time, if you want, there's really no such thing as divorce. I mean, there is some such things, but you have to have a reason as to why you want to divorce. And back then, there's like really limited reason for divorce. So, and since he's a king, it'd be easier for him to either. I mean, it would be really hard. I mean, he could divorce her and leave her well off. At the same time, he could divorce her and make her a peasant girl again. Um. So yeah. Also, one thing that the animated series movie does very well is, right, it's very funny. It's a king says, "I just want grandchildren," and he's like, "It does marry for love or marry for power. It doesn't matter. She's just gonna be making babies. That's really her job." And he says that straight out. I'm like, nah, that's so true. Because at the end of the day, whether it be true love or whether it be for power, she's just a baby maker. That's really what the princess or the queen's job was back then, to have sex, make babies, and make tons of babies. Okay, there's really, I mean, and normally at that time, it'll be just like this. The prince goes to her room, um, has sex with her, and that's it. They sleep in separate rooms, and sometimes they will sleep in the same room, and sometimes they will sleep in the same room, but usually they have separate beds. And it was very rare at the time for them to have conjoined beds. You have a bed where both of them sleeps. So just another tidbit at the end, Cinderella, she's just a baby maker. She's just there for sex. Um, and so at the end, she has no power. So after about a year, the prince will get tired of her and either A, want to divorce her and see how that successful becomes, because again at the time it was just easier to execute her. It'd say, oh, she died. Um, and then get a new wife. At the time, it was easier. It wasn't up until like the 1800s where divorce was a somewhat natural thing. I mean, it still wasn't socially accepted, but the Vatican gave more lineage as to why there should be divorce. At this time, though, between the 15 and 1600s, the divorce rules, the reason why you should get divorced, were a bit more limited. Hence, why it's easier to say, "Oh, she just died." Now the Vatican doesn't really care as to how she died. As long as she's dead, and now you can remarry. Because at the time, remarrying was, I'm not gonna say it was frowned upon, because it technically wasn't. For royalty, I'm talking about. Okay, when it comes to the peasant class, they could basically do anything they want. But for royalty, I'm not saying that it is frowned upon. Sometimes it is frowned upon, but it's one of those things. It's a double-edged sword, and depending who you're looking at, sometimes it is frowned upon, and sometimes it is not. So yeah, so basically within it, and it also, again, you have to take into account that the fact that this may not happen within a year. It'll happen after a while, though. I'm just saying within a year because logically, I think that's how, because logically after a year most couples lose that lust for each other. It's been statistically proven that after a year, a couple will still be in love with each other, but they won't be madly in love as they were about a year ago in their marriage day, in the days following up to and after the actual marriage. So that's what I'm saying, about a year. Now, could it be more than a year? Of course, it can be. Now, however, for the Cinderella animated movies, because there are more than one, there's actually three of them. Remember, there's two straight to DVD sequels, and again, I'm using elements from both sides. So, how does that happen in play? Okay, so I know the first sequel takes about a year after the original movie, and I think the second one takes a couple years afterwards. I think another year. So overall, Cinderella is about 3 years long. The whole story. Um. So yeah, the whole Cinderella series, the first three animated movies, the only animated movies, take about 3 years. So again, I'm just saying within a year, but it could be 5 years. It doesn't matter. After a while, Kit will be, or the Prince Charming or whatever, he will get tired of Cinderella. Either A, want to get divorced with her, or B, execute her, either way, and then possibly remarry for power so he could dominate in wars, have allies in wars, and yeah, and after a while, also she's gonna be starting to sag, if you know what I mean. You know, she's gonna start to sag, um, because again, her job is just to make babies. It's just to make babies. That's all her job is. She is basically a baby maker. So yeah, that's basically on my thoughts on Cinderella after credits roll. What are your thoughts on it? You know, you have a different interpretation through history. You know, what are your thoughts on it? Comment on that down below. Let me know. I mean, I'm pretty sure most people would say it's more or less the same thing. The only thing that would change if they actually tell us what country it takes place and what what country takes place and around what the actual time period is. Most of it is assume it's between the 15 to 1600s, and it is in Germany because of the original story. But overall, we really don't know. I mean, if it takes place in France, it does change it up a bit. Again, if it takes place in Britain, it does change it up a bit. So location and timing also, because if it's closer to the 1600s, that's closer to the Industrial Revolution, which that you have some different set of circumstances. So yeah, but so yeah, I mean, really the only thing that really does heavily affect is the location and time. If they ever reveal that, that's a whole different issue. And I may do an updated version of this one. But you know, we're going off common knowledge, something we all socially accept, and yeah, that's basically it for my thoughts on it. And hopefully you guys enjoy. I don't know when when the next one will be. Again, I do them at randomly. So yeah, that's basically it for now. Basically it for now. This one will be under the movie theories playlist as well as the after the credits playlist, which I'm gonna create after I post this video. And yeah, that's basically it for now. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. I do movie reviews, TV show reviews, and comic book reviews, and I also do theory videos for movies, TV shows, comics, or books in general, or you know, stories in general, business, science, political, religious, TV, movie, and video games. I feel like I'm missing one. Music. So yeah, I do a lot of theory videos every week, and yeah, aside from that, subscribe, comment down below, like the videos on Facebook, Twitter, MySpace, or whatever you guys prefer. And that's basically it for now. This is Daniel Mart signing off.